Hey everybody, it's Friday, September 30th. I think it's till 2022 as far as my calendar goes. And this is an AMA. If you haven't been to one before, you ask a question and hopefully I'm going to answer it. I'm usually pretty good at that. I'm a 90 something percentile, so we'll see how we go today. I think we're just going to jump right in. It's been a while since I did one of these. And for me, that means like a week or so because usually I do these things every week. For years now, actually. You've actually been able to watch as I get balder almost in real time. So congratulations, you're welcome. And let's jump right in. So this isn't really a question, but beggars can't be choosers. So long time no see. Hope you're doing well. Yep, I think it's been 2 weeks. Maybe 3 actually. Has it been 3 weeks? Was the 9th the last time we did one of these bad boys? I don't remember. There's been a lot of travel going on, so it could be. But yeah, nice to be back. Is this the live stream for Putin's speech? Nope, wrong channel. Wrong channel. I'm slightly taller. What's Putin, like 4'8"? I forget. When soons? Hey, Kim. I'll try not to have a soon today, but we were really good at soons back in the day. Not necessarily at getting them accomplished, but definitely talking about them. We're much better at getting them accomplished, which doesn't make them soons, I guess, anymore. I don't know. The monkey biscuits. Is there also the monkey biscuit? Just wondering. When are we finally going to get some XCM rewards? Mars plus more interest. It's all in the works, my friend. It's all in the works. Mars, we have a deadline this month of rolling out a bunch of new Mars assets. That means more staking programs in general across CoinMetro. And as far as those yields, yep, that's also part of the plan. Not sure you're going to see those in October or November, but you're definitely going to see them. I meant the soons from last AMA, Mars every 1 to 5 to 10 days. Oh yeah. So basically with one of the providers that we use for staking, well, basically their developer decided to hide a lot of repos, which is kind of funny. It's only funny because if it's not funny, it kind of would want to make you cry. So instead of kind of rolling them out how we wanted to roll them out, I think they're all going to come out almost in a waterfall fashion. But still timed for the month of October, which is initially when we were timing to get them out. We just thought we were going to be able to do it iteratively rather than all at once. Cool. That's your cousin. Must get really interesting at like, I was going to say company. What I meant to say was like family picnics. Got to listen out for that S. Do you guys look alike as well? Because that would be really interesting then, to be honest. My girlfriend's husband. Okay, that one makes more sense than the last guy. What was the other one? It was what was it? My wife's boyfriend? Yeah. I wonder if you guys are related. What action will CM take against the unauthorized XCM trades made on Uniswap that do not respect the price floor? Well, nothing. One, they're not unauthorized. XCM as a utility token sitting on CoinMetro is kind of our own little market. However, we can't stop anybody from opening up additional markets anywhere. That's how, decentralized markets work. And so, nothing. I don't think it's a bad thing per se. Yes, there may be people there that are buying at lower prices that may come and, dump onto the sell side. That right now may look like an issue. In the long run, though, having additional places where people can trade their XCM, fine. I don't really have a problem with that. And there's nothing we could do anyway. If there was, then this whole idea of decentralized markets, well, we just broke it then, right? It doesn't work. So we don't need to authorize every XCM trade. That's for sure. In fact, we don't even authorize them on our own platform. That's generally how a market book works. Hi, Kev. Any marketing news? Hey, Jeff Fuel. Funny enough, I mentioned BizDev. We had a shareholders meeting today, and I literally put you in my slide because I had 3 different things about BizDev that I was mentioning. Not sure I can mention those publicly though yet, but just know there's a lot of BizDev going on. So any marketing news? Yeah, there's actually a lot of marketing news. As most of you guys probably already know, we've been working with some agencies. We're still working with those agencies. We have somebody new coming onto the marketing team on Monday who has an ample amount of experience in multiple facets of marketing, who's going to take over for the most part our marketing department. I think we're excited about that. We've also been upping the amount of money or the allocation of funds that we have that are going towards marketing. Also a good thing. We also have multiple influencers that we're currently signing contracts with. We also have multiple different promotions that are going live. You guys have seen the 10 to 10, the new referral thing. There's going to be different iterations of that going live as well. We're also working on this rewards page and product, which will help users understand what promotions are available, what promotions are tied to their account. Also give them the ability to promote those promotions out to a wider audience using our referral program. What else we got going on in marketing? We got a few more, I guess, not promotions, but campaigns that'll be going live with the help of some of those agencies. And also budgets going larger on those agencies. One agency currently sitting on a 75,000 euro budget, I believe, of which they've only spent about 7K because last month they were doing other things to get ready for the rollout. Yeah, so lots of things happening actually. And the average signups are still going up, by the way, over time. Almost identical. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be interesting. You guys should film that. Might go viral. Make sure you wear CoinMetro t-shirts though. Yeah, or if you really don't like your cousin, have him wear a Binance t-shirt, and then you'll obviously have a CoinMetro t-shirt on. Everybody will love you and hate the other guy. Are you confident of securing more funding when the time comes in this current environment? Yes, I am. I know that from a broader perspective. Well, it'd be different, I guess, if just the crypto market was having issues in terms of whatever. Paper losses and or liquidity and or whatever else, volumes, etc. But it's not. It's in fact every market. And so the macro is what the macro is, meaning everybody's kind of in the same boat. And when you zoom out, and I talked a bit about this today in our shareholders meeting as well. Obviously, not all, some of you guys were probably there, not all you guys. The idea that when you look at CoinMetro as a whole, high level, right? And then you see one thing. When you start digging in and looking a bit more granular, when you look at things like our cost of acquisition and our overall lifetime value, how long we retain clients, the products that we built, the products that we are building, what we actually have internally in terms of IP, and based on a marketing spend, how fast we can actually scale the amount of clients we have and maintain that lifetime value and that acquisition cost, we are a pretty exciting property, bar none. And so, yes, I'm pretty confident. In fact, we are going to be going through an interim funding round between now and the end of the year, looking to raise roughly around 10 million euro. That may extend into Q1 next year, but sometime in that realm. I mean, I'm going to be out. I'm already out. I'm already talking to investors. I'm talking to government funds and large kind of private equity funds in different countries. UAE is one of them, by the way. Another one is well, I'm not even sure what region this would be, but anyway, talking to two different funds, some angel investors as well as some current investors, looking to put those funds together. Why? Well, we do want to do this larger push, this larger round. It's probably going to be Q2, Q3 next year, mainly because of the macro environment that we're currently sitting in. Also, it gives us more time to see more growth for CoinMetro, which is also a good thing. And so these funds will make sure that we can push faster and harder to get to that Q2, Q3 and those goals, rather than going a bit slower and then having a slightly less, let's say, less optimized picture to show investors from the CoinMetro side. We can't really do much about the macro, right? Macro could be great or it could be terrible. We don't really play a role in that, but we can definitely play a role in how fast we're able to get to our own goals by going out and doing this smaller interim round now. Hi, Kevin. I live in a region which is being de-risked by correspondent banks because they deemed it high risk and unprofitable. Do you think crypto fintech services can either support or replace the current banking system to avoid the region becoming totally unbanked? What do you think is the best path forward? Hey, ironically. So ironically, if challenger banks and crypto were to grow to the point where they could solve that problem, they'd probably have the same problem. So there's two parts to that problem. I do think that in the short to medium term, crypto challenger banks, of which we will become one by Q1 next year when we roll out our own challenger bank services, can help. Understand though that crypto, centralized crypto, and to an even certain extent, indirectly decentralized crypto, but definitely centralized crypto marketplaces, as well as challenger banks, still have to connect to the underlying traditional marketplace, the traditional rails, which are banks. And so we see the same thing you see. We might have a bit more a bit better ability to change those things because we are a larger client. Banks like to say they want to de-risk, and they're very quick to de-risk a small client, an individual, because they don't make any money there anyway. But the same de-risking doesn't necessarily happen at a client that makes them money. That's just the way the world works. That's why we see, money laundering scandals at banks where they obviously are onboarding risky clients and they continue to do it because they make money. When they get caught, they stop. And so to a certain extent, that's how it plays out, even when it comes to, not money laundering, but just day-to-day business at a bank. You may be an individual working with crypto and they're like, look, this guy makes us 13 cents a month. Let's just go ahead and unbank him. But here's a company that does the exact same thing that individual does, but we make 50K a month. Let's go ahead and try to figure out how to keep this, party rolling. So in the long run, if nothing were to change, even if crypto and challenger banks moved in to fill this hole, you'd end up having the same problem because the cycle would continue. I think what needs to happen, and what some of like-minded people in crypto and the challenger bank community are trying to make happen, is that regulation needs to change to be a bit more dynamic and a bit more accessible for those people in certain markets and globally, really speaking, but definitely in specific markets that are challenged by these type of things. To do that, there needs to be a way for that risk to be looked at from a different angle. What might be risky today, given maybe technological advances and or the ability to deal with risk in real time, also through technology, may actually mean that that risk gets lessened and thus there's more access. But that's a longer game plan. That's part of the game plan that CoinMetro tries to play when we talk to regulators. And, like I just sat on a panel with regulators from Finland and Estonia just the other day in Denmark. And we try to get our foot in the door so that we can have these open conversations and try to help them do a better job, and they can help us kind of mold our business so that we can make sure that, one, we still have this end goal of providing access, but we also do it in a way that they're comfortable with so that we don't step on each other's toes. Also, I've seen your ads on Facebook. Well done, sir. Well, thank you, Kadena Meyer. Please don't click on them insensibly because it just costs us more money, but thanks for viewing. But hopefully everybody else clicks on them that doesn't yet know who we are. But yeah, awesome. I've seen them as well. So you're going to see more and more of that, that's for sure. Can you give us a time frame for when the tier system will be updated? Between now and the end of the year, that's definitely going to happen. Can't really go too more fine print on that one yet because it's part of a much larger plan. And that might not be the top priority. We literally just had a discussion about it, though, off chance with our CFO in sitting here in my office just about 30 minutes ago. As I understand, the 12-week estimate for XCM order book normalizing is not going to happen. When do you think? Why do you think? Or what do you think caused this? And will your next estimate be more precise? Well, whether or not the estimate's going to be precise, I think, 12-week was 3 months. I think we're just rolling into 3 months right now. And yes, I think we have made some changes, I think, that probably helped the book be less heavy than it is right now. Obviously, though, it's more than when we initially set out to fix it. So again, one of those things that's hard to understand. Whether if we did nothing, would it be worse? Would it be better? If we did more at this point, given what the rest of the market looks like, would it be more? Would it be less? Would it be better? Would it be worse? All those things are hard to answer. So what I can say is that we went through an entire process over the last 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, to make a very precise prioritization chart for the entire business. Every department has certain priorities, and those priorities are mostly directly and some indirectly tied to the main goals the company has by the end of the year. One of those goals is the XCM order book. So between now and the end of the year, whether it's progressively all at once, or or however it tends to work out, we will see a change in that order book through the next 3 months. We've already seen a change. Again, we may not necessarily know what that change would have been had we done something different or nothing at all, but we definitely have seen a change. We definitely have seen, for instance, more XCM staked. We definitely have seen changes in the amount of, let's say, larger orders that's sitting on the sell side. Most of the orders that are now coming in are relatively small in comparison to the initial 12, 13, 14 XCM holders that put sell orders into the book right after the liquidity was eaten through. So we have seen changes. I expect to see more. We have a lot of initiatives. Some were discussed today, actually, again, off chance on a completely different topic. Others are in active discussion, and it is part of our prioritization from now till the end of the year. So by the end of the year, I expect to see a very different book. Whether or not it is completely solved is also part and partial to what the market looks like overall. And that, unfortunately, we have no control over. No matter what estimate we give, there's not much we can do to move that needle. However, what we can do is make sure that we focus on the XCM book, and that's exactly what we're doing. Again, it may not, but these are problems that there's not just one single solution. And in many cases, sometimes if you have a great solution, but you release it by itself, and you don't have all these other small pieces, that great solution can turn into a burden in the short term. One example of that would be just adding more liquidity to the book right now. If we were to go in and put 2 million euro, 3 million euros sitting at, 60 cents, people probably would sell right into it. People that haven't yet put sell orders in the book would probably sell into it. Why? Because they lost money on other assets. It's what happened when the book initially fell and the buy side was eaten up. And so, but if you do that after you've thinned out the sell side, and you've also added in some, let's say there's more movement in the book on a daily basis. Say there's 100,000 or 200,000 euro being traded on a daily basis versus 1,000, 5,000, or 10,000. Then adding in that liquidity has a completely different effect. So some of these things need to come either together in a group, or they have to come out in a certain order, or else we may actually do short-term harm. Even though the long-term still might be good, we might do short-term harm, which may affect kind of the effectiveness of the rest of those solutions. If you had to guess, how many Mars assets do you think will be on the exchange by the end of 2023? Our end goal is to have every asset that exists on CoinMetro have a passive income connection. I think right now we have somewhere around 40 assets, I think, something like that. So whether we get there at the end of 2023, that's your question, literally. I think we're going to float somewhere around 15 to 20. I think that's a good goal to reach. In some cases, it's not necessarily about quantity, but quality. Obviously, we could have 100 up there, but if 10 of them do amazingly well and the rest don't do anything, then if we just have those 10, also amazing, right? So I think just like we focus trying to find listings that are kind of gems, I think we will do the same thing in the order in which we make these things have passive income connections. And so I think 10 to 15 is a good place to start. As far as advertising goes, I think I said 15 to 20, sorry. As far as advertising goes, I still think you need Blues Brothers style advertising where you just slap an enormous PA speaker to the roof of the car and yell at random people to buy XCM. Yeah, that's outside the box marketing. It's something that isn't just, whatever. Now normal marketing is pretty much social media. I agree with you. I think in targeted campaigns in certain jurisdictions, billboards, events, dude walking on the street with a megaphone, maybe one of those guys. You ever been in New York City? You go to Times Square. There's always that one guy. There's one guy, at least one guy, sometimes more than one guy, that's like preaching about whatever, like the devil coming back next Tuesday or something. That guy probably gets more people listening to him, not because they want to, but because they have no choice, because they're trying to walk down the street, than a lot of different advertising campaigns. So yeah, potentially. I don't know if I want that guy talking about XCM, to be honest. That might get us the wrong type of clientele. I don't know. But I agree with you. I do think that, and we've talked about this in marketing, literally, about doing targeted tests in certain markets and using a bit more, in some ways, traditional marketing, word of mouth, literally, or not so traditional, but again, more targeted on that market. And this could be one of those things. When can we sell XCM? Hey, Karsten, we're working on it, man. You can sell XCM now. It just takes some time. You got to kind of wait in line. And the line is kind of long. That line could take a couple months, could take a few months. Right now, we are putting things in position to where by the end of the year, I do believe you're going to see a significant change in that book. I think we've already seen change in the book. The problem is that there is more sell side pressure. So you might not necessarily feel what that change is. But we've already done certain things like adding XCM to margin, allowing you to use that as collateral, et cetera, that has inevitably reduced the amount of XCM that would have ended up on the sell side, for sure. To what extent? Hard to measure. However, we have many options. I've talked about a quote unquote nuclear option in the past. I don't think we're going to need that anymore. I think we've come to a compromise on what we can do in order to drastically reduce the sell side, place a bit of limits on what people can do on the sell side until the book reactivates, and then absolutely incentivize buying of XCM at CoinMetro, doing all that relatively at the same time to reactivate the book, get the book moving again, and then push in market making and liquidity provision. So we're working on it, man. It is a priority for us. Has been a priority, but it's going to continue to be a priority, and it's on the top of the list with basically higher revenues going into the end of the year. Lago Finance stablecoin got hacked on Cadena. Can CoinMetro create a centralized bridge for a stable like you're doing for Wrapped KDA? That was part of the plan. We were going to create essentially a centralized bridge for KUSD, KBTC, and KETH. However, the conversation with us and Cadena kind of just fell off a cliff. So we were discussing doing it. Then the whole KDX thing happened. Not that that is necessarily directly tied to this, but it happened. And that kind of started to dilute a bit the conversation that we were having with Cadena. So we are still open to working with Cadena. We're still, ready and willing to move forward with that project. We just haven't really had any communication. And to be fair, we haven't necessarily pushed either. But there hasn't really been a line of communication to get that bad boy over the line. But it has been discussed, and multiple times. I was on multiple calls about it, KBTC, KUSD, et cetera. I think KUSD or KUSDC, I think was the idea for a wrap stablecoin. What did you learn from recent appearances you made on the international panels you were invited to, the sentiment from different related countries? I think sentiment, unlike in previous, bear markets or corrections, where the industry as a whole is just like kind of depressed. What I see now, and this may be because a lot of the market participants now have already been through this before, where in previous bear markets, even though this is like our 8th bear swing or correction or bear market or whatever, crypto winter, whatever you want to call it, there was a lot of people that came in 2017 and 18, and it was the first time, and it was an extended one. And so these people who had just gotten the market, this massive amount of people all were kind of in depression mode. And now I don't see that. I actually see people are quite upbeat. People are talking about building, solving problems, creating new product, new services, reaching out to more people. And that's positive. That means the market has matured to a certain extent. And the people that are coming in now that may end up seeing the next, bull run, may have a similar look at the next bear or correction. But by then we should have amassed enough people, I think, in the industry, or enough newcomers into the industry over the last 2 or 3 years, to where, again, we're slowly going to start to see that, corrections are inevitable. And anybody that's been in finance, anybody that's been around markets in general kind of already knew that. But crypto, nuanced people that are coming into crypto, new people, didn't necessarily know that. Now they're starting to know that. So relatively positive. Now, Crypto Gibraltar, mainly crypto people, or obviously B2B service providers, et cetera, that might not be crypto people, but mainly people that were there were talking about crypto topics, right? In fact, whether it was Web3, Metaverse, or Web7, or whatever. But those people generally upbeat, to be honest. When it comes to the traditional side, yep, some traditional market players that are looking for business to offer services to crypto are like, yeah, what do you think about this market? What do you think is going to happen? But when it comes to participants, much different than what you would have seen in the past. 2-year CoinMetro bond matures in approximately 3 months. Is the platform ready for this yet? When people will need to make a decision on how to proceed? I'm not sure we're going to do it through the platform. We're going to have to see. It depends a lot on Ignium. It also depends on what the majority is going to do. Move into equity and or move into XCM. I think more than likely it's going to be handled through some type of off-platform solution, right? So where you'll basically like fill in a form, and then we'll use that to make sure that everybody gets what they requested. But there has been discussions on it already, though we haven't come to a final decision on how we're going to do it. I think if we creating something on platform, probably not what we're going to do, simply because all our resources now are pushed toward more revenue, XCM book. And so having to stick something else in there to build something specifically for one, a one-off distribution doesn't really make much sense, at least for the time being. Will CM stay operational in case of nuke attack on Talon? Well, I think we'd have a lot more problems if there was going to be a nuclear attack on Estonia than CoinMetro and its ability to stay operational. Generally speaking, CoinMetro could maintain operations even if there was a nuke dropped on Talon. Yes, mainly because most of our staff is distributed. More than half of it is outside of Estonia. Outside of Estonia, there are multiple people that have snippets of accesses that they would be able to continue operations. There might be some, hiccups here or there, but to be honest, like I said, if that were to happen, first of all, power would go out probably literally in half of Europe, if not more. In fact, it probably would go out eventually in all of Europe, and that would cause ripple effects across the world. I mean, I think the smallest problem people would have is the CoinMetro website seems not to be functioning at its full capacity. But theoretically speaking, yes, I think we would be able to maintain operations, though there would be some hiccups, at least in the short term. Thoughts on internet computer? I did look at this at one point in the past. I wasn't too excited about it. And I know that because I completely forgot what I read. So my brain works in a very particular way. I'll give you an example. I actually have a pretty good memory. It's not photogenic, but it's pretty good. And I have ways that I've trained, like I can train myself to really remember stuff. Sometimes that's attaching a feeling to it. Sometimes it's attaching like a date to it. Sometimes it's attaching whatever, but I have a pretty good memory. Only if though, it's important to me. And my brain somehow makes that decision on its own, right? So if I read something today or I meet someone and for some reason I decide that not important, forgotten almost immediately, gone. Just no recollection. However, same token, different token maybe, if I meet someone or I read about something and it's important, don't forget it. And it's just how my brain works. I definitely read something on an internet computer. I remember. Don't remember a thing about it though. So I guess that gives you an answer. Will you implement the Johannes protocol? Don't know if I read something about this one, but you're going to have to give me some insight on that one. Shoot me a link. IK, does CM have a plan B in case all attempts of breaking wall don't work? Well, that if all attempts, we would have already gone through plan B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z. So that would mean going back to the planning stages and figuring out what else we should do. But we have multiple attack points, and we have kind of this is the last thing we will do in this list of things, which we assume will absolutely correct the book. Whether or not it maintains over the course is another question. So in that sense, yes, that's why it's not just one thing. It's not like, let's do this. Okay, plan B, let's do this. Okay, plan C. No, there is, 15 things of which 3 or 4 have already been done that we want to accomplish. And then there's this final thing of, well, if that doesn't work, we're just going to do this. We know it's going to work short term, maybe even medium term. Whether it works long term is a question. With recent CoinMetro listings, what are you most excited about? With recent CoinMetro listings, are you most excited about tech-wise? I guess it's what are you most excited about? You mean from the listings or from, just in general? I think there's some interesting things. I actually met a guy from Near Protocol, indirect from Near. They work with Near Protocol as well, but they're quite closely connected. I think, most of the things that we listed, I think are interesting. Let's put it that way. Near Protocol is one that I looked into a bit more than others, simply because, as I mentioned before many times, I think we're going to have protocol wars. And I think at the end of the day, protocols are going to have to figure out what they're really good at and market to a very specific niche, because in most cases, anything can be done on any protocol. The question is, why would you use one over the other? And the real question is, why would you leave Ethereum to go to another? That's the question, because like it or not, POS, POW, doesn't matter. Ethereum still holds the vast amount of market share when it comes to programmatic money and dApps and etc. And so why would you move somewhere else? And that has to be there. That means that there needs to be this kind of marketing and standardization push by these other protocols. And Near to me seems like they might have something that makes them not necessarily unique in what they do, but unique in how they approach the problems they can solve. So that one kind of hits for me. But also because, like I said, sometimes I forget stuff that doesn't seem too important to me at the time. And I just had a conversation with someone from near, and I remember most of that conversation, if not all of it, because I thought it was interesting, and I decided to store it in a box somewhere. So it's sitting in there, rummaging around. At all, hit like. Yep, like button, guys. If you hit it, that'll make me kind of happy. Maybe I think if enough people hit the like buttons, I might have like some hair growth or something. So that would be interesting. That's an experiment we should do. 1 million likes, I sometimes somehow grow hair. Let's see if that actually works. Hey there, I got a massive CM related tax bill due in June. Do I need to make alternative plans where I'll be able to liquidate some XCM on the exchange? Well, my goal is that you will be able to liquidate some XCM on the exchange. That's my goal. That's the company's goal collectively. But yeah, I don't have a crystal ball. So, if Talon did get nuked tomorrow, that would probably be pretty bad for every financial market in the history of mankind that currently exists. So, nothing I can do to tell you that without fail, January XCM book is reactivated. What I can tell you is that's absolutely something the company collectively is shooting for. What are your thoughts on how the current traditional market system, interest rate spikes, QE, Europe winter, blah, 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 will pan out over the next 1, 3, 5 years to come? Well, the current market system has been broken for a long time. Problem is you don't really see how broken it is until it's stressed. And obviously right now it's getting stressed to the point where these normal things normal quantitative tightening and quantitative easing are relatively new terms, right? It's not like they've been around for 100 years. But what's done behind the scenes to do quantitative easing and quantitative tightening have been around for 100 years. But the coin term is new. Point here being, though, that there's only so much they can do. You can see the Bank of England, right? They raised rates and the pound got slaughtered. Pound got slaughtered because they printed a bunch of money. And now what are they going to do? They're going to print more money to buy more bonds. Is that going to solve it? No, of course not. Will it look like it solves it for a short term? Might. The process here is that the more people that know how these things work and the fact that they don't actually work, the more pressure it puts on the system to change. When it's only the people that work in, certain industries, or the people that sit inside of, central banks, et cetera, all understand how these things work and don't work, it's probably never going to change. Good thing now is, obviously we've had the internet for a while now, but, we have things like the internet, we have things like social media, and we have platforms like YouTube where people can talk about stuff like this. And people are starting to realize that these things don't work. They're starting to realize that there's only two real options for central banks, inflate, deflate. It's pretty much it. And when you have a perfect storm, you have, because of their own fault, but record money printing leads to record inflation. Then you also have a kind of it's not macro, right? It's micro in some senses. We're talking about the war that's currently happening in Ukraine. But in many senses, it is macro because it's touching food supply, it's touching energy supply, it's touching all these things. So you have that, plus the inflation, plus the massive amount of money printing. And now you also have additional stress points. And you also have additional stress points on top of that because this micro situation now with, Nord 2 and all these things may become macro. And all that stress is leading to the markets. So what do? If you continue to raise interest rates and make money more expensive, nobody's investing into things like the stock market, bonds, et cetera. If they're not doing that, then you're having another type of crisis. And usually in that type of crisis, you lower interest rates. But if they're not willing to lower interest rates, you get where I'm going? They only have really, three options maybe. But among those options, in a perfect storm, they're kind of screwed at the end of the day, which means they may have to go back to printing money, which is only going to make the situation look slightly better on paper for a very short amount of time. So, over the next 1, 3, or 5 years, I expect lots of volatility, to be honest, which is good for traders, not necessarily good for everybody else. I don't expect inflation to really ease off. They may say it eases off because they're going to change the way they calculate inflation, or they're going to try to do, they already kind of, if you know how they kind of calculate inflation, it's already ridiculous, right? Let's assume inflation is calculated by the cost of, ground beef and gasoline. And they go, ground beef's really expensive right now. So how about instead of ground beef, what can people eat instead of ground beef? And some guy in the room says lentils. And they go, how much are lentils? Oh, they only went up 2%. Okay, let's take that then instead of ground beef. That's literally how they calculate inflation, and it's nonsense. But anyway, inflation is probably not going to back off. the situation in Ukraine, why it might not get extensively worse, is not going away. So all the energy issues that are connected to Russia and all the energy consumption issues that are connected to Europe, et cetera, aren't going to go away. Winter is going to get pretty difficult. Subsidies are going to have to be made. For countries to make subsidies, what are they going to have to do? Print money. They're going to have to print money. There's going to have to be loan mechanisms. There's going to, which may lead to massive amount of austerity in Europe in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years. Remember Cyprus? Well, think Cyprus, think Greece, think that across the pan-European community. Question then is, would Germany pull out of the EU? Because would they want to support that? Would they want their economy having to support literally everybody else, like they've supported the PIG countries, which would be, they're not necessarily pigs, but PIG is an acronym for Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. And so it is the unraveling of the EU to a certain extent, especially when it comes to economic issues over the next 1, 3 to 5 years. What that does to the broader economies around the world remains to be seen. The US dollar will probably be the winner out of all of this. It's already winning. If it wins too much, however, it loses, because it also is an export economy. And to an even wider extent, imagine even when they import goods, the dollar gets strong enough, economies, not necessarily the largest economies, but smaller economies that depend on exporting to the US might have to devalue or basically reformat their entire currency so that they can actually keep up with the fact that the dollar is so expensive. So there's a lot of interconnectivity here that's going to get really interesting over the next 1 to 3 to 5 years. I don't expect a solution. I kind of expect stagnation. So we're going to get to a bad point, and then we're just going to maintain it for quite some time. I know that doesn't sound all rosy. What that means is for the overall market, I do think when you think about alternatives, i.e. risk on assets, where do I put my money? Crypto. I mean, it may sound crazy, but at the end of the day, I don't really see much alternatives. There's going to be a lot of money looking for a place to go. A lot of money that is getting priced out of anything else because of inflation, or simply because the risk now high, even in assets that were previously considered to be risk-free, riskless, or low risk. Not anymore. Long explanation. Sorry about that. That was like an 8-minute answer. What happened with the monthly Mars editions? They're coming. As I said, it's just we're going to have to waterfall them, because one of the third parties that we're using to integrate some of these protocol-based staking options has had a bit of an issue with their own infrastructure. And so it's going to be a waterfall. We thought it was going to be iterative. It's going to be a waterfall. The end of the 2 years are approaching for the bonds. I believe we talked about this already. What will happen to the owners by then? Well, they have the choice, same choice, XCM or equity. That choice isn't going to change. You specified that 12-week estimate was based off of changes CM made to XCM. Do you think the changes weren't enough, or were you predicting a better market? How confident you year of end ETA? Not necessarily a better market, and not necessarily that these things weren't enough. It's just, no matter how big my forehead is, right? That doesn't mean I can contemplate every single nuance that exists in the market. And so, one, we had marketing that was scaling up, but because of different issues, it didn't scale up as fast as we wanted it to. Money was in place, everything was ready to go, didn't scale as fast as we wanted it to. So that restricted the amount of new clients, still going up, but didn't go up as fast as we would have anticipated based on the numbers we were seeing, because it was pulled back. So not pulled back, but slowed down in terms of spend. Then we have, obviously, yes, the market. The market could have done better, it could have done worse, but either way, the market kind of essentially is exactly where it was back when we started. And it's had a bit of this, up and down, but it's still back more or less where it started. And yes, some of the solutions we didn't roll out, and some of them we didn't roll out on purpose, because we needed to have maybe 3 of them roll out together. As I explained earlier in the show, some things may have a negative effect if they're not rolled out with other solutions at the same time. And I gave you an example before. So lots of different things. Right now, previously, product and the board, to a certain extent, some finance, were involved in talking about what we wanted to do to invigorate the XCM book, but it wasn't a company-wide priority. Now it is. That's the difference. Hello. Hey, Bobby. Coming up on 40 minutes. I think I'm going to go another 5 minutes here, guys. I think I might get to the end of the questions. We'll see. There haven't been any contests lately on Discord. Any plans? Yep, that actually is tied into some KPIs for some new additions to the team. So I do expect Discord to start to ramp up again, get more a bit interactive. Good to see you, Kevin. Thanks, Brad. Will there be recording the shareholder meeting? Yes, there will be next week. You'll get access to that. What I want to make sure is that it can't be shared with other people willy-nilly. So we're going to set up that Telegram group that we talked about just for shareholders, and then we will make sure that you guys get the link next week. I've gone deep in the KDA eco and things are sizzling. NFTs, DEXs, all types of projects. Question, will CM list KDA tokens have access to KDA NFT projects like Coinbase does with ETH Polygon? So the answer to both of those is ready, willing, and waiting. And to a certain extent, we haven't listed Kadena tokens. One, because we're a bit disconnected right now from the ecosystem because, we've had our problems with communication over the years for sure. And we still do to a certain extent. So does Kadena. And so there just hasn't been enough cooperation, enough talk, and to be very fair on both sides, enough execution. And I'll take some blame on our side, and there's absolutely blame on the other. But we still, I still want to work with Kadena. I still want to get things done, but there has to be a push from both sides to have that happen. So, I've stepped up and kind of reached out a few times and haven't heard much back. There's probably been times that they stepped up for different things, and maybe it took us time to get back. But that kind of communication needs to be much better for us to effectively be able to work together on things like this. Inevitably, though, Kadena tokens will end up getting listed. Just depends on how integrated we are with them and how far we'll go. And yeah, I'm still bullish on Kadena. Yeah. Hi, Kevin. Have you followed this week's SmartCon Chainlink news? Any thoughts? Will CoinMetro offer link staking as it becomes available? I haven't actually. I saw some Chainlink news about them providing Oracle services, but I don't think I read the SmartCon thing, so I'll have to look at that. But if there is a solution for Chainlink staking and it doesn't involve extreme counterparty risk, then we'll absolutely look at it. What's your opinion on players in crypto colluding with politicians to push for a federal bit license, and how would it affect CM? Well, I talked about this a bit in the panel that we had about regulation. I'll cover 2 minutes of it here for you. Coinbase and Binance are now becoming quite active in lobbying. Coinbase has been an active lobbyist for quite some time. Binance is now trying to jump on the bandwagon. A lot of times in this industry, just like nuanced industries in general, the wrong people get listened to. And when I say wrong, I don't mean they're wrong. I don't necessarily mean they're bad. I just mean from the perspective of what the market wants in general, they're probably the wrong people to listen to. Coinbase is probably the wrong person to listen to if you're an individual crypto trader looking for maybe some additional rights, a bit more clarity on taxes, how to optimize your gains, et cetera. What Coinbase wants isn't what you want. When it comes, so again, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean they're bad, but we're starting to see a lot of lobbying from some certain places. And a federal bit license would knock out 99% of the competition for Coinbase. Is that good for the market? Is it good for the consumer? No. Is it good for Coinbase? Yeah, absolutely. So the problem is that regulators aren't part of the industry. Legislators aren't part of the industry. They don't know who to talk to, so they just do a Google search. Coinbase is huge. They go, okay, Coinbase. Now, Coinbase doesn't want what the general market wants. So one, I think there needs to be a push. Just everybody involved in this market has to be vocal. And we're already doing that to a certain extent. You look at Twitter, et cetera. But sometimes, again, we're vocal for the wrong reasons. I think a federal bit license would be an absolute shit show. I think, however, federal licensing in general is a good idea. It brings clarity. Just like MiCA will bring clarity to the EU. Doesn't mean it fixes all the problems, but it brings clarity. Brings passporting. Allows you to operate with one license and not 27. When it comes to the US, same thing. I don't need 50 or 104 licenses anymore, or whatever it is. I only need one. Amazing clarity. Whether or not it's really good legislation at first doesn't really matter, because it does bring that clarity and allows for one point of contact. But if the way that they're drafting that legislation is based on overall what one company wants, it's not good for the market. And that's how it's traditionally done. So we need to break that tradition. Can you elaborate on the final step you would to break the sell wall, the one you just mentioned a few minutes ago? I don't really want to elaborate on it. I guess the easiest way to say is it would absolutely reset the book, 100%. That's as far as I'll go. I've talked about it before on Telegram, and it just caused a ridiculous amount of back and forth based on a hypothesis. And then that turned into like, we're going to do this thing, or that turned in, and I don't want that to happen again. Let's just say that without a doubt, this last potential option, which is absolutely the last option, would 100% reset the order book. When will the Fed U-turn? Well, that's a good question. The BOE is in a much worse situation than the Fed when it comes to numbers right now, because the Fed has a strong dollar, which can become a bad thing, and it's pretty close to getting there, but they have a strong dollar. They have much less inflation. And yeah, those two things alone mean they have a bit of time. They also want to try to some extent to reduce the amount of probably loans that are sitting on books of banks. So raising interest rates will do that. In the long term, that's a bad thing. In the short term, though, it de-risks a bit. So we may see another rise from the Fed, maybe even 2 more rises. But inevitably, they're going to have to go back to printing money. And they can't raise interest to the point where it's going to combat inflation and thus start to kind of remedy the ship. They're going to have to get to a certain point where they're okay. Okay, inflation's now down to 5. Let's start printing more money. Like, so instead of, historically the Fed, 2% was their key inflation rate. They wanted inflation always at 2. Well, for the next 10 to 40 years, unfortunately, it's not going to be 2 anymore. It's going to be 5, 4, 6. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's not going to be 2. Let's assume maybe it's around 4. And that means that they're going to try and keep inflation to that rate. So, they're going to have to play a little bit to see how they do that with rising interest rates versus printing money. But they're inevitably going to print more money. To put a finger on that's kind of difficult. The BOE already flipped. You're probably going to see other countries flip because of the BOE. That's going to put some additional pressure on the U.S. But I think they have at least 1 to 2 more interest rate rises before they flip. So that could be beginning next year, potentially. Awesome as always, Kev. Thanks for answering all our questions. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the questions and you listening to me answer them. So thanks. It seems like Binance get more and more recognition. Do you still think they will get a backlash? Yes, 100%. 100%. It's kind of like you killed 50 people. Everybody knows you killed 50 people. And then you come out to talk about victims' rights and putting murderers in jail. That doesn't mean you didn't kill 50 people. Yes, absolutely, there will be backlash. Absolutely. You notice you don't see Binance going and schmoozing with the U.S. regulators, the New York State Attorney General, or the Bank of England, or the FSA. You see them in Dubai, you see them in France, you see them everywhere where they didn't yet have issues. You can almost play a little bit of chess by understanding where they're vocal. They hadn't gotten a cease to desist, or they haven't had a big issue. Where they're not vocal, yeah. So I still think it's coming. I think most players in the market think it's coming. I said 3 to 5 years. 2023 will be 5 years since I said that. These things take a long time, and yes, the market plays a role as well. It also, maybe inevitably it doesn't mean the end of Binance. Maybe it means something else, but you're going to see more and more pressure applied. That's for sure. But it takes time to build a case, especially when you're talking about something like New York State Attorney General or some of the other U.S. Prosecutor agencies. Nope, that's a hoverboard. That's a hoverboard from Back to the Future, which, I can stand on it. I've skated in my life before. I was much younger. If I try to do it now, I'd kill myself. But I never really was a skater. But I have done it, if that's your question. I've also surfed once or twice, also a long time ago. You said on Twitter that Bank of England played the worst timing, but you think they had a choice regarding to the internet risk to the UK pension bonds collapse. Well, there's always a choice. The question is this going to save pensions, or is it simply going to apply more pressure to everything else, and the inevitability the pensions get screwed anyway? And I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think they're just buying time, but as they buy time, they induce larger risk across many other sectors other than pensions. So yeah, and bad timing really wasn't necessarily to say they shouldn't have done it. Bad timing meaning, if they could have chosen any other time, it would have been better than this. Hi, Kevin. Do you think Hedera isn't as popular reviewed as well as L1s, even though on paper the technology is a lot better than the rest? Or why do I think? Yeah, you know what? It's probably first mover advantage to a certain extent, ETH, right? It's also probably people not understanding how the system works in comparative to a block. Not that they understand blockchain, but I think people now that they've heard blockchain enough kind of have an idea that they think they know how it works. And Hedera being on a completely different type of network, and there's not many other players on that type of network, and so they're the only ones preaching, is probably part and partial to a reason why they're not more popular. But also, they may not have figured out what their unique niches to focus on, rather than trying to be a Ethereum killer. Cannot stay longer as my connection is very unstable. Hope to hear my answer about selling XCM. Okay, I think I answered that. Also, like to invest more in the future, but need info. You can contact support. Anybody who wants to add a beneficiary to their account, contact support, add that beneficiary. Eventually, we'll have that in the back end so you can do it in a more seamless way. And I think we have one. Yes, Back to the Future 2, to be more precise. Thank you. It's also in Back to the Future 3 if you want to get nitpicky when they're on the train. But you're right, it wasn't in Back to the Future 1. Good point. Actually, well, you know what? Let's actually, it actually wasn't Back to the Future 1. Because if you remember, Back to the Future 2, dude goes back to the scene in Back to the Future 1, and he already had the hoverboard. So it's in the first movie as well. You just don't see it. And plus, with time travel, how it works, once you've gone back to one point in time, then, even if time being linear or cyclical or spiral doesn't make a difference. What will the top 5 L1s in the next 5 years in terms of adoption? That's a great question. One that I probably can't necessarily answer, but it's gonna come down to the fact of where they focus, what their niche is, and how effectively they focus on the niche. You can't be the best thing for everybody when it comes to that type of solution. So you need to be the best for a very small subset. I think Ethereum is still going to be a top. It's not going to change. Ethereum will still be in the top 5. I think when we talk about, I think Cadena has a shot to be in that top 5 as well. Near may also have a shot to be in that top 5, relative newcomer. Hedera has a shot to be in that top 5. It's very difficult. 5 years is a long time, considering that some of these layer ones haven't even been here for 5 years, and even Ethereum hasn't been here much longer than 5 years. But Ethereum will still be there. That one I can probably put a stamp on. I don't see that one going anywhere. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. We're 52 minutes in, and I need to have a sip of water. So have a great rest of your Friday. It is the weekend, so as I always say, what do I always say? It's been a while now. What do I say? I say that spend time with friends and family. If you can't do it physically, do it virtually. Hopefully now everybody can do it physically. But, if you're not, pick up a phone, get on a Zoom call, do something. If you're 55 or older, use Skype. If you're 60 or older, maybe you still have Hotmail Messenger. Holy Christ. Does that still exist? I don't think so. Anyway, chat with people, talk to people. Make sure you tell them about XCM. It's only going to get better from here. Yep, we got a bit of a hiccup in the road, but I'd rather have this hiccup than 4-cent XCM and no liquidity. So as hiccup goes, I think it's a pretty good one. We are primed and ready for the next bull run, and I'm excited. Whether that happens tomorrow or in 6 months or a year, I'm still going to be excited. Have a great weekend, everybody. You might want to look at prices, but if you do, look sparingly. Have a good weekend. Get away from the screen. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for all the support. Really do appreciate it. Onwards and upwards. Cheers.